Hello and welcome to another Analysis Behind the News, where we provide the perspective that you can use to help save American liberty and independence. We have 3 action items for you today, so please stay tuned. When you were growing up and you got into trouble for doing something that everybody else was doing, did your parents ever ask you that if every one of your friends jumped off a cliff, does that mean that you should too? Well, apparently many in Congress, as well as President Trump, weren't scolded enough in their youth, as 321 representatives and senators voted for the massive spending bill that keeps Obama-level spending through the end of the fiscal year, which is at the end of September. Republican leadership pushed this through in both the House and Senate. Speaker of the House Paul Ryan jumped off the cliff, followed by 144 Republicans who voted for it. In the Senate, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell jumped off the cliff, followed by 25 Republicans, but 23 Republicans voted against it. Senator Rand Paul was likely the most vocal opponent to the bill. He took to Twitter to excoriate his fellow Republicans. He mentioned that the 2,200 plus pages of the final text was available on Thursday, the same day that the House was voting on it, and then the Senate passed it on Friday. Senator Paul tweeted out a series of tweets that exposed the unconstitutional spending that the bill entails, including border security funding for Jordan, Lebanon, Egypt, and Tunisia. And we should mention that the funding for Jordan is for a 274-mile-long border wall to be used on its border with Iraq. But Trump didn't get his wall. Paul also tweeted that the bill contains $12 million for scholarships for Lebanon, $20 million for Middle East scholarships, $12 million in military funding for Vietnam, $15 million in developmental assistance to China, $1.4 billion for contributions to international organizations. Try to find that one in the Constitution. $10 million for United Nations environmental programs, and $2.7 billion for international disaster assistance. Now, over at the New American, Alex Newman reported that the bill also funds Planned Parenthood, sanctuary cities, potential gun bans for millions of Americans, Obamacare, military support for mass murdering communist dictators, and countless other unconstitutional schemes. Political magazine also got into the fray, and they published online that Democratic congressional leaders Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer gloated in a statement that its job-creating, life-saving investments stand in sharp contrast to the Trump budget. They also say it basically extends the fiscal status quo that has prevailed since the start of Obama's second term, plus a sizable chunk of new deficit spending, even though Republicans now control the legislative and executive branches. Republicans control the legislative and executive branches? Are we so sure about that? The type of Republicans that show up during the election cycle are markedly different than those who conspire against the Constitution and against your liberties on the floor of the House and Senate. Republican leadership is being less than truthful with you when they show up at your proverbial doorstep each election cycle looking for a handout and your vote. So, the Freedom Index from the New American magazine charts average scores of those in Congress. Did you know that the average member of the House scores 45% of the time that they vote? While over in the Senate, it says here that the average score is 31%. Folks, that's both for Republicans and Democrats. Both take an oath to the Constitution, which provides for limited powers. Does spending $1.3 trillion in 6 months sound like a limited constitutional government to you? So, what do? Wait until the next spending bill to see if they do the same thing? Or even worse, call for a balanced budget amendment that will do nothing but legitimize unconstitutional spending? No, you get organized. You don't wait until the next election cycle to take action. So action item number 1, get copies of the Freedom Index as well as copies of Alex Newman's article online. Print off copies of his article and order copies of the Freedom Index. You have our permission to reprint Alex's article free of charge. Action item number 2, distribute these copies at community events in your area. Go visit your neighbors and give them copies so they can see how their congressmen are voting. Go into the neighborhoods of those Republicans who voted for this bill and let their constituents know. Only by taking an active role as a constituent will you ever see change. And part of your responsibility is to enforce those constitutional limitations because it is we, the people, who have delegated that responsibility to them. So, how are you going to take the news of this bill? By hollering and shouting at the TV, or by getting involved in a national movement that will be visiting their constituents? You can bet that members of the John Birch Society are already gearing up to do just that. So action item number 3, join our organization today to be part of a national concerted action program that has been protecting liberty for 60 years. Our highly experienced staff and volunteer leaders will show you how. And please, like and share this video with others. And until next time, we'll see you then. If you like this video, then head over to jbs.org where you'll find even more educational content on the issues that matter the most.